So how do we get that board game from point A to point B? A little while ago, we were talking about doing this wargaming miniature thing and how when you purchase a gaming case, a storage case, you need to anticipate your army growing by 2 or 3 fold, and some of the different cases and different storage options. And this leads into the board gaming side of the equation, because board gaming as a hobby, as a community, as a lifestyle has changed so much, where there are literally certain board games that I play, I set up. You're like, is it a board game? Is it a war game? It's got a lot of dice. It's got tape and measurement. It's got cards. It's got 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 miniatures. There's 2 armies going at it. And we need to transport that stuff. Now, a good board game will at least have some basic inserts or some basic containment in the box itself. The question here, a little bit out of the scope of this vlog, is do you invest in some sort of custom foam board, custom case, some sort of upgrade? But we're talking, generally speaking, the game itself and maybe a few extra boxes in terms of expansions. Games that I transport to the club. For the most part, depending on the game, I do have a heavy-duty cardboard box. I like to fit 1 in 1. And my primary concern is really twofold. Keeping a little bit of rain or weather off it as I go to the car, from the car to the store or to the club, and also just kind of general bumps and bangs. I'm not looking to have something protected if I drop it, because I'm not planning to drop it, but just that little type of stuff where you're holding 2 games and you're trying to open the door with your foot, the door hits the box, or you're putting it on the table, you slide it over, essentially a buffer. So I think with board games, it's more of a transportation system for that than keeping things organized. Secondary to that, there are a number of titles that I like to regularly bring with me, 3 or 4 titles that we might play them, we might not play them. Really kind of depends on the mood in the moment. I have those in a Tupperware container with a self-locking top that I can bring as a bin. I find with that, and I've got some foam inserts that I cut to kind of wedge in there. First, I want it to be see-through so I can see the exact tub that I'm bringing. Second, I want the top to lock. I had a great kind of big plastic tub that I was transporting stuff for a long time. It fit perfectly, but the top did not lock. And some of these games do get a little bit heavy with the expansions. That flex on the tub itself would sometimes cause the lid to pop. So having that type of clasp, lock, clamps, whatever, handles. Don't underestimate handles, because I started out with this other box that was really great. It didn't have handles and it was manageable. But then there's that other stuff you bring to the gaming club that you put on top of the box, maybe some snacks, maybe some books, maybe a game that I'm going to return to a friend, maybe some other stuff, my jacket, carrying all that. It's nice to have handles to transport that in. And then, of course, the third aspect of it, I do have a game bag, one of these, it's like a square giant backpack, and you slide the games in there, it zips around, it has a handle. I've never really used it as a backpack because I just wonder how it's going to hold that weight. I have a couple of titles in that system that are really, really big or kind of odd shaped boxes that they just happen to fit perfectly in that. There's about 4 titles that I'll regularly bring with that. I do like that idea in that it's a little bit more organized, and that I've got the primary case where the games are going in, but I've got zippers for some kind of tape and measure and some dice and maybe some other stuff that I have to navigate and bring. The thing with that, though, is it's pretty big, but it adds a little bit of padding, but it doesn't quite have the durability or the bump factor compared to, say, a Tupperware tin that you're bringing in, or container, plastic bin. I think the primary thing with that, and certainly in the comments, I think there's a difference where most of the time when I'm going to the club, just based on the area, I'm driving or a friend is picking me up. We have access to a car. We put everything in the back. We put it in the back seat. We go. If I was a little bit more city focused, it would be easier to have it in a backpack, on a knapsack, something that I can wear, take off, put back on. I could see that working in a different environment. But again, making sure that if I buy something that fits my 3 games, what happens when I get a 4th? So trying to anticipate that growth of titles that maybe I want to bring with me. So turning it over to my fellow board gaming enthusiasts, you thought this was just a wargaming problem where you've got your army and you've got it ready to go and your dice and your templates and your cards and everything. Board games, I've got Dark Souls, the board game with currently all the expansions. That's like from floor to ceiling stacked up in the Fritz cave. That's more than like the size of some of my 40K armies. So certainly board games are no longer the little grab and grow. They have evolved to the point where, yes, we kind of need somewhat of a storage system and a transportation system. What does that look like for your titles, for your collection?